The Legend of Zelda has changed forever. In an interview with IGN, Aonuma, the producer of The Legend of Zelda, has essentially stated that the more open, non-linear Zelda formula is here to stay, and that, in regards to older Zelda design philosophy, he says, to quote, "I do think we as people have a tendency to want the thing that we don't currently have, and there's a bit of a grass is greener mentality." Aonuma, on the whole, seems extremely optimistic about the future of Zelda with the non-linear formula. Whereas when you read the actual interview he did with IGN, it really does seem like that older style of Zelda formula will remain an older style and not return, or at least in some main capacity. And I think that was obvious with the paint on the walls drying in regards to just look at the sales figures for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. They blow the rest of the series out of the water. And you have to remember, at the end of the day, Nintendo is a business. They want to sell the most copies and make the most money that they possibly can, and it seems like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is the formula to do so in regards to modern-day Legend of Zelda. Now, I think there's personally room for both iterations, or at least both styles of Legend of Zelda. I don't see a main game like the big AAA releases for Zelda ever not being this older style we've come to know and love. I think the Breath and Tears formula is here to stay. But I also don't think that has to mean stagnation, because I too really do enjoy the non-linear aspects of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think they invoke that sense of adventure that Zelda, at least on the NES and ever since, has tried to invoke in one way or the other. But there's aspects to the Breath and Tears formula that I think could use some absolute revision. I think an over-reliance on shrines is one of them. They feel like a cheap substitute for the overarching, well-designed dungeons we used to have in the series past, broken up into these bite-sized little tidbits that are scattered across the world in locations that feel antithetical to exploring a massive open world. I'm not opposed to having instance locations in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild formula, but I don't think they all have to share the same, overall texture palette and feel so completely different to the rest of the world. I've also not been a fan of the dungeon design in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's a little bit better in Tears, but not by a significant margin. And I think a lot of the older games still blow the current dungeon design out of the water, because I feel like a lot of the interesting puzzle design is relegated more towards the shrines instead of the actual dungeons. The only dungeons I kinda sorta liked in Tears of the Kingdom was the Lightning Dungeon and the Fire Temple. And that's more so because of the location those dungeons were set in, more so than the actual mechanics of the dungeon. Couple that with subpar boss design in my opinion, I think the only boss fight I actually genuinely loved and enjoyed in both Breath and Tears of the Kingdom is the final boss Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom. Also, I did like the boxing mech fight with the Mineru questline and what was the name of that guy? You know, Minecraft Bro, the guy who's just made out of blocks? That guy, he was cool. But those are really the only fights that I genuinely enjoyed and loved and wouldn't mind fighting again. In both of these games, they happen to be all in Tears of the Kingdom, but still. But these are also issues and critiques that I have with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild that I don't think run antithetical to the design philosophies Zelda seemingly will have going into the future. Creating better and arguably even more dungeons to coincide with fight design that is more in line with Ganondorf at the end of Tears of the Kingdom, in my opinion, doesn't run counter with the idea of having non-linear dungeons or non-linear puzzles to solve in a multitude of ways alongside an open world. Because those are both aspects that I think would benefit strongly simply by just giving them more hardware to work with that's not just the Nintendo Switch. That's a big limiting factor for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and I imagine Nintendo's next console will at least be more powerful and give them more room to work with. But things like dungeons and boss design, those aren't limited to having the game be forcibly a linear experience. They can work seamlessly well in an open world game, because I think the blueprint is there in Tears of the Kingdom, where you unlock the sage abilities for each dungeon, and then the dungeon utilizes those sage abilities in ways that are reminiscent of how you would unlock a new tool going into a new dungeon, and then utilize that tool to solve the unique dungeon challenges that were before you. I just think the puzzles need to be more well designed and thought out, and less repetitive on the whole. They are trending in the right direction in this regard. I just think they need to keep trending in that direction, you know? And we come up upon an interesting argument for Legend of Zelda as a whole, because this open world formula has succeeded masterfully for Nintendo and Zelda. Breath and Tears have sold so many copies and are beloved by millions of people. And there was a legit argument that Tears of the Kingdom was one of the best games of 2023, and 2023 is an absolutely stacked year. And most of my issues with Tears of the Kingdom either boil down to reusing locations and just things overall from Breath of the Wild, or the dungeon and boss design that we just talked about. But Tears also introduced many aspects that I think are absolutely extraordinary. Being able to create your own machinations and explore the world and solve puzzles using those tools gave a sense of individuality and uniqueness and non-linearity and player choice that I think so greatly benefits the idea and the air surrounding Tears of the Kingdom and this open world Zelda design. Getting lost in this magical, I saw someone on Twitter call Zelda over the last 10 years Ghibli-esque, and I can't unsee it because it is. This soft aesthetic that just permeates the entire game and draws you in and refuses to let go. It's fun and captivating to explore and to navigate around, and you know that your tools, your puzzle solving, you can find a way with your own unique identity and flair and twist on it, find some way to overcome whatever challenge the game poses to you. The fuse mechanic is absolutely next level. I love the fuse mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom. It rewards, it incentivizes you to fight monsters and to fight stronger ones at that, which was Breath of the Wild's biggest weakness. And how do they rebound from that? Making it feel truly worthwhile to do so. Heck, I even farmed the Lionels because it was so worth it, because I got tools and resources at my disposal to fuse with the basic weapons that I had to make way stronger ones. I can make interesting elemental combinations. I can make really cool bow and arrow combinations. I can put an entire bookcase on a shield and call it a day, a GG if you will. That is great player agency and really sucks you in, big suck, into the world, captivates you, and keeps you there with your feet firmly planted on the ground, wanting more. The only aspect of the exploration that I wasn't that big on in regards to Tears of the Kingdom was twofold. One, that it was the Hyrule map again, which I didn't mind for the first half but started dragging the second half of the game for me. And that I thought the sky was underdeveloped and underutilized. That was it. Heck, the whole reason I started playing Genshin a couple of years ago was because I wanted that feel that Breath of the Wild gave me all those years ago. I wanted it in some form or fashion. And then Tears of the Kingdom comes along and does the formula of exploration and non-linearity and puzzle solving even better. And I think we are seeing people's reception and love and adoration for the Tears and Breath formula showcase themselves in the sales figures for these games. I can't blame Nintendo, nor am I unhappy with the idea that we're going to get more games in this style, because they are truly quality games, and I love them so much. I just don't want this series to become a bit too formulaic with the dungeon design and the shrine design. I don't know if every game in the future needs Ultra Hand, for instance, but I would love to see Fuse return, personally. I would love that. Ascend, what a great mechanic to explore the world, and to never really feel trapped in one place. Oh, you're in a cave and you kind of lost your way? Just use Ascend and go back to the surface. That makes for so many interesting ways to navigate and to solve and rectify a problem or situation on display for you. It's great. And I don't like the Wind Temple because of the actual mechanics there, and the final boss is not what I like at all in terms of boss design. But the visuals for the Wind Temple, dude! You're exploring a temple in the middle of a storm in midair. It's awesome. Water Temple was mid, I think we can all agree with that, but like outside of that, going to explore a freaking pyramid using Wind Waker-esque light mechanics, the Fire Temple being underground, that's a cool concept to begin with, riding rail carts and all that, great concepts. I think they just need to shore up the actual puzzle mechanics within those dungeons and have boss design that is more in line with having multiple mechanics and even multiple phases like Ganondorf had at the end of Tears of the Kingdom, and that would write a massive blemish in that formula for me. I don't think Zelda needs to return to the era of more linear games that was still somewhat open, because Zelda's always been a series about exploration, first and foremost, and I will die on that hill. But I think a lot of the aspects that older veterans of Zelda miss and wish were still there in Breath and Tears aren't necessarily counter to the open world and non-linear design that Breath and Tears bring to the table. I also think Zelda benefits greatly from having a variety of experiences, so I don't want to see smaller Zelda projects or spin-offs go to the wayside, either. I think there's a balance to be had. I don't see the mainline Zelda games not being in this open world, non-linear style. I don't see that personally. I'm not even sure if I want to see that, because I do genuinely love this Breath and Tears formula. And if you tell me, this is how much I love this. If you tell me that the Nintendo Switch 2, or the Super Nintendo Switch, or whatever they want to call it, the Switch U, comes out and is an absolute powerhouse, and that they made an upgraded version of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that run at like 1080p or 1440p, 60 FPS, with some lighting changes here and there, and that the game runs smooth like butter, like a hot knife through butter. It's smooth, it's creamy, it's delicious, it's crispy goodness. I would replay both those games immediately, beyond a shadow of a doubt, because the limitations of Breath and Tears of the Kingdom aren't because of the actual formula of Breath or Tears of the Kingdom. It's just some design choices here and there that I think were a bit subpar in aspects that can be shored up massively that we are starting to see going from Breath to Tears, alongside the Nintendo Switch being about as powerful as a baked potato. These are all fixable solutions within the confines of a non-linear Breath and Tears style Zelda game. And I'm so excited to see where Zelda goes in the future. I just am. Zelda's cool. I don't want it to get too formulaic and to only put out Zelda games like this. I think smaller Zelda projects and remakes and stuff like that would still be welcome, and I would personally like that. But personally, I do love the fact we are going to see more games in the style of Breath and Tears of the Kingdom. I think the future is bright for Zelda, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Zelda. So with that, I'll call the video. You know, this video turned out way more optimistic than I thought it would going in, huh? I don't know, Zelda just has this way to be optimistic for me, you know? Just to kind of put a smile on my face. Even when I'm critiquing and pointing out the things that I don't like, there's so many things that I do like. It just and always ends up putting a smile on my face, putting me in a good mood. Zelda's cool, and I think it's going to remain cool for years to come. So thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It'd really help the channel out and help support future content. I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.